Box office top 10.
Yes. Hang on, let me just move
at
it down the
number
script.
42, Werner Herzog, Radical Dreamer.
Which, it was interesting, I walked into a screening just the other day to watch, actually I think to see Baghead, and one of my fellow critics said, I enjoyed your cameo in Werner Herzog Radical Dreamer, which is, of course, it's not my cameo, it's that they used the piece of footage of Werner getting shot up by Lookout Mountain in Los Angeles, and that's at the very, very beginning of it. I love Herzog. I think this is a very interesting documentary. The only problem is you could do 9 hours about the mythology of Herzog, and you still wouldn't even have scratched the surface, because he is like a self-generating myth machine. But there's a lovely moment in it in which Wim Wenders comments that, you can't help but be impressed by Werner Herzog because he even invented his own accent, which is...
Is that right?
Well, it's true that, Wenders, as a German, says that accent is, it's like it's the Werner Herzog accent. There is something unique about Werner Herzog's accent that is not explained by him saying, well, I'm Bavarian. You go, yeah, but your brother doesn't speak like that.
Number 13, The End We Start From.
Which I think is a very well-made film. It is a difficult sell at the moment to sell a film about London flooding and people being displaced and, a difficult subject matter, because obviously there's a lot of difficulty and trouble in the world. But I think what's interesting is it is about contemporary issues. As I said, the director said to me that she definitely didn't want it to look like it was in the future. She wanted it to look contemporary because all those things about displacement and migration and climate change are happening right now. And a great central performance by Jodie Comer.
As always. Number 10 is Priscilla,
which I liked very much. I think Sofia Coppola managed to tell a very complicated story very well. It does have a kind of fairy tale, dark fairy tale Rebecca quality to it. And if you know the Elvis and Priscilla story anyway, I think it tells it in a way that is non-judgmental, but in watching it, you are invited to make your own judgment, and there's no question about just how creepy and strange it is.
Number 9 is The Boy and the Heron,
which I thought was terrific. I know that not all Miyazaki fans are completely sold on it, but I thought the animation was astonishing, and I thought it was a moving story.
Wish is at number 8.
Not astonishing animation and not a moving story, just a reminder that Disney's back catalogue is filled with films that we love, and this isn't one of them.
The Beekeeper is at 7.
I'm a beekeeper. I've got to keep the bees, and every now and then the worker bee is going to rise up, and I'm just going to smash some people in the head with this chair. It's
14 times.
It's the Staith doing what he does, and I'm sorry, I'm here for it.
Number 6 is The Holdovers. So this is from Phil Sinnott in Crosby. There's no need to write, produce, edit, film or release any more films this year. I've just watched The Holdovers and nothing will compare. A brilliant film which had so many echoes of great 70s movies, one to watch again and again. Enough said. Rachel in Leicester. It's a very warm and comforting film to view and genuinely feels like you're watching something made in the 70s. It has just the right touch of sentimentality without overdoing it. One of my pet hates with films such as this is when the score tells you what you should be feeling. The Holdovers didn't do this. Yeah. Instead, it relied on the understated but powerfully naturalistic performances. I think it's such a shame that this wasn't released in the UK at the same time as the USA, because I'm not sure how many people will want to see a Christmassy film when the last of the tree needles have been vacuumed away and the decorations are all boxed and back in the loft.
Exactly.
This really is a festive gem of a film, and I will certainly be adding it to my list of regular Christmas viewing. Tickety-tonk and down with illogical release dates. I mean, it's certainly... You think, why? I mean, it actually is... Right?
Yes. Yeah.
The thing is, it's such a good film, you can watch it at any time.
Yes.
Because it's not actually about Christmas.
But releasing it just after Christmas...
Is nonsense.
It would make more sense to release it in the summer.
Yeah.
So, in terms of Oscars, it's up for Best Picture, Best Actor for Paul Giamatti, Best Supporting Actress for, we now learn Davine Joy Randolph. I pronounced her name before I said Davine Joy, but it's Davine Joy Randolph. Best Original Screenplay and Best Editing. I think it's a lovely film. I think it's really charming, really funny, really touching and tender in that old 70s way. Incidentally, we had an email last week from somebody who said, that they loved the fact that it had that 1970s celluloid thing. And somebody had written on the YouTube channel, well, it's funny that they didn't pick up that it's digital. Actually, I thought we did mention that, actually, because the director, Alexander Payne, when he did Nebraska, shot Nebraska obviously on digital and then, processed it to make it look like a black and white 16mm. And in the case of this, it's a similar kind of, but those processes have got very, very good now. It's more to do with the style, with the lighting, with the way in which the direction works that makes it feel like but I thought it was lovely. I thought it was absolutely lovely. And I just don't understand why they didn't release it before Christmas.
Agreed. But watch it any time because it's great. Number 5 is One Life,
which is very moving. And as I said, remember when the King's Speech happened and people talked about, at the end of the movie, people stood up and applauded. Remember we did quite a lot of correspondence. We've had several people write in that say at the end of One Life, people just sat and it felt like disrespectful to move. And I think that is a very interesting fact.
Number 4, Anyone But You,
which I haven't seen, but I want to because it's Will Clark.
Poor Things is at number 3.
Which is completely fabulous. And do we have further?
Yes,
okay, fine.
So I think this is Natalie.
Yes, okay.
Inspired to write after going to see Poor Things on Friday. I know Mark often says your experience of a film is impacted by what you bring to it, though in this case, it's what I brought to it that affected my reflections afterwards.
Okay, right.
December 2022, my family was shaken by the unexpected death of my cousin at only 25 years of age. Neve was a shining light of a person and the closest thing I had to a sister. Every day I think of things I wish I could share with her, as we had many of the same interests and hobbies, but quite different social and political views, which always led to interesting though good-natured debates. After a wonderful but exhausting December, celebrating Christmas, but also mourning the 1-year anniversary of Neve's death, I found myself utterly burnt out and needing a few days off. So I booked some leave, and on Friday afternoon took myself along to see Poor Things. I've been a fan of Yorgos Lanthimos' work for a long time, and frankly, the weirder the better, as far as I'm concerned. Therefore, I've been excited to see it for a long time. I wasn't disappointed, thoroughly relishing the more bonkers elements of the story and the gorgeous Victorian steampunk aesthetic. However, since coming out of it, I've been longing to discuss it with Neve, who I'm sure would have had much to say about the film's feminist credentials, its celebration of an exploration, without leering, of female sexuality, and its exploration of women's autonomy and power in a world built and run by men. I also think that she, as someone on the autistic spectrum, would have had an engaging debate about my interpretation of the character of Bella as neurodivergent, and how refreshing I found it to see a female character confident and frank about her thoughts and desires, who is both vulnerable and strong, though society does its best to disempower her and force her to conform. While I understand the film's source material is a novel, which I haven't read but shall, I loved McNamara and Lanthimos' vision, the screenwriters, brought so wonderfully to life by Emma Stone. I was almost surprised to see such a multifaceted portrayal of womanhood, created, written and directed by men. It just goes to show that it can be done, and done fabulously, if and when male writers and directors view female characters as whole beings and not merely girlfriends, wives, mothers and sex objects. As George R.R. Martin said when asked how he wrote such authentic female characters, I've always considered women to be people too. As I no longer have my wonderful cousin and friend to share such thoughts with, and as it's not the sort of film I would recommend every one of my acquaintances go and see, especially after their response to The Lobster, I'm grateful to have your show and a chance to share my thoughts in a film that has grown more profound and meaningful for me since seeing it a few days ago.
Well, what a lovely email. And it is definitely true that what that does demonstrate, because if you remember last week, there was at least one, I think maybe two emails that were had a very, very sceptical take on the portrayal of Bella, and we talked about that, and I think, there are different interpretations. Really lovely to hear somebody finding their own take on it that was so positive and absolutely empowering. That is kind of tends to be the area in which I see the film, and also lovely that that you made that connection about wanting to have that discussion, which I understand, and we've said this so many times on this program. The great miracle of films is that they're really about people and your relationships with people.
Natalie signs off, by the way, Balmaslow Karate Club Student of the Year 2003, and I've been dying to re-celebrate that achievement for years. That's in County Galway, by the way.
Very good.
And Tim Bradshaw, before we leave this subject, everything was wrong with Poor Things.
Okay.
Wait for the ending.
Okay.
Everything was wrong with Poor Things. Films made in a mix of black and white and colour are almost always a director saying, "Look at me, I'm so clever," when really they're not all that. I'm talking about Christopher Nolan, of course, whose work consists entirely of, "Look at how clever I am." Oh, and there's the strange fisheye lens stuff. And of course, it was made on film. I should have hated this movie. It was brilliant. So good, I'm going to see it again tomorrow.
Well done.
Although,
well done.
Though, we got there. But,
Yeah.
Tim, that assessment of Chris Nolan, I think, is entirely incorrect.
Yes, entirely incorrect.
Number 2 is Wonka. What an incredible hit that is.
What an incredible hit that is. And it is the fact that it's still number 2. And how many weeks has it been in the charts?
1,000.
1,000 weeks in the charts.
And the UK's number 1 is Mean Girls. Stephen Thieker says, "Too bland. Where was Tina Fey's usual sharpness? Back home, my daughter played me the cast recording of the stage musical, and there it was, before the songs were sanitised for the film. And it should have been a period film. That's not how teens would destroy Regina these days."
Yeah, you see that it is interesting that there isn't really. It doesn't hit the same nerve that Mean Girls did when it first came out, because the world has changed so much. Okay, there's a certain amount of updating in the film, but exactly. I think it doesn't have the bite that it did have. But, hey, it's gone to number 1.
And it's
so,
the number 1 movie.